We walk this earth blindly believing we understand its rules. But scattered across our planet are severe, terrifying glitches. Forbidden corners where alien flora bleeds crimson red, and ruthless jungles completely swallow forgotten human empires, alive. We are talking about claustrophobic, suffocating underworlds of glowing, ancient ice, sitting on the exact same planet as violently boiling, toxic eyes of liquid rainbows that stare right back at the sky. These are completely impossible landscapes that shatter the laws of logic. Sanctuaries desperately suspended on gravity-defying, pillars of stone and massive ghost cities built on razor edges, touching the very roof of the heavens. Places where the earth violently erupts in toxic radioactive neon fire under the cover of night, and underground labyrinths of twisting, frozen stone that trap the desert light. From scorched, apocalyptic canvases, perfectly frozen in time, to infinite mirrors where the boundary between heaven and earth simply vanishes. Forget everything you thought you knew. We are crossing the boundary. The journey begins now. Deep in the waters of the Arabian Sea, disconnected from the natural evolution of the world, lies an isolated rock that Earth simply forgot. A place where the soil bleeds crimson, and the forest canopy looks like it was engineered by an extraterrestrial architect. This is not a digital illusion created on a computer. This is a living, breathing paradox. Welcome to Socotra, a jagged 130-kilometer stretch of unforgiving terrain off the coast of Yemen. Over 700 bizarre species of flora exist right here on this island, and absolutely nowhere else in the known universe. But the true masters of this barren wasteland are the ancient, towering structures known as the Dragon's Blood trees. Standing beneath these massive umbrella-like canopies feels like walking through a prehistoric graveyard. The sheer silence of the island is deafening. As the sun dips below the horizon, the shadows stretch across the white sand, turning this isolated desert into an entirely different planet. It is a terrifyingly beautiful ecosystem that has survived the harshest conditions known to nature, entirely on its own. How does a place like this even exist? The answer is brutal isolation. 34 million years ago, Socotra violently tore away from the supercontinent. Cut off from global evolution, life here had to adapt to a merciless, waterless desert. The bizarre shape of these trees evolved purely to capture rare, passing, morning mist, funneling microscopic drops of moisture down thick, scaly branches to their roots. And that dark red sap? It's a highly potent, crimson defense mechanism bleeding from the wood. Socotra stands as the ultimate proof that extreme heat and total isolation can birth alien life on Earth. But what happens when we strip away the heat entirely and plunge directly into a crushing, freezing underworld that logic dictates shouldn't even exist? Deep beneath the surface of the world, entirely hidden from the warmth of the sun, exists a suffocating labyrinth of glowing neon, a subterranean crystal palace that constantly groans, shifts, and breathes with a life of its own. To step inside these winding frozen corridors is to willingly let yourself be swallowed alive by a frozen ocean. This is Vatnajökull, Iceland, the largest and most volatile glacier in all of Europe. The sheer mass of ice crushing down directly above your head is nearly 1,000 meters thick, completely trapping you in a merciless sub-zero void. What you are looking at isn't just ice. It is literal frozen time, locked away in the dark for over a millennia. Wandering deeper into the cave system, the darkness begins to play tricks on the human mind. The walls emit an impossible, radioactive glow that feels incredibly hostile, yet completely mesmerizing. Every single step echoes through the chamber, accompanied by the terrifying deep rumbles of the glacier moving just inches above you. It is an empire of absolute, freezing blue, completely cut off from the human world. That intense electric neon glow isn't a post-production trick. It is the raw visual of ancient, crushing pressure. Over centuries, the immense, unimaginable weight of the glacier physically compresses the snow, squeezing out every microscopic air bubble. When a tiny fracture of light finally pierces this oxygen-starved ice, it absorbs the red color spectrum entirely, leaving only this radioactive blue frequency to violently strike your eyes. It is a terrifyingly hypnotic underworld, completely carved by the patience of time. But the human mind quickly craves chaos. What if we shatter this freezing ice right now and step directly into a violently boiling liquid rainbow right in the heart of America? The Earth literally tears open, and from its molten core bleeds a perfect symmetrical eye of liquid fire. A swirling vortex of impossible radioactive colors that looks exactly like a portal to another dimension, quietly burning away in the wild. This is a landscape that feels incredibly hostile to human life, yet completely mesmerizing to the human eye. Welcome to the unforgiving wilderness of Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. You are staring directly into the Grand Prismatic Spring. It is the absolute largest hot spring in the United States, stretching a massive 370 feet across. The dead center of this alien eye is a lethal, violently boiling 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Stepping into those waters means instant destruction. Floating above this thermal anomaly, you truly begin to comprehend the sheer scale of the Earth's raw, unfiltered power. The contrast between the dark, dense American forests and this vibrant, toxic pool feels like a total glitch in reality. It is as if the Earth's molten iris is wide awake, silently staring right back at the sky above. A masterpiece of extreme heat, painted entirely by destruction. How does nature paint with such violent, perfect symmetry? The chilling answer is that this extreme color is actually alive. Those vivid rings of deep orange, yellow, and blood red are massive, living mats of heat-loving bacteria called thermophils. Different alien-like species aggressively thrive at different extreme temperatures along the edges. But that pure, sterile blue right in the dead center, it is simply too violently hot for any organism to survive, completely scattering the sunlight just like the deep ocean. America's boiling rainbow is the ultimate masterpiece of geothermal heat. But while boiling temperatures create bizarre life here, across the globe, an endless, suffocating jungle is slowly swallowing a forgotten empire alive. Hidden deep beneath a suffocating canopy of fog, a silent, brutal battle between ancient stone and relentless nature is raging in absolute silence. Massive, serpentine roots crush through forgotten walls, dragging an entire, glorious civilization back into the dark dirt. This is the ultimate Tomb Raider fantasy, bleeding straight into reality. This is Prohm, hidden in the dense jungles of Cambodia. Constructed in the late 12th century, this massive sacred temple complex was mysteriously abandoned and left to the unforgiving mercy of the earth. Today, it stands exactly as terrified explorers first found it, completely choked and paralyzed by the terrifying grip of giant spung trees. Walking through these crumbling corridors feels like stepping directly into the belly of a sleeping beast. The sheer magnitude of the roots creates a deeply unsettling maze of shadow and stone. Nature here is not peaceful. It is aggressive, hungry, and patient. An entire human empire completely overpowered and swallowed whole by the earth itself, without making a single sound. The sheer, crushing force of these alien-like roots completely defies architectural logic. Over centuries, tiny seeds dropped by passing birds into the cracks of the temple walls began to secretly sprout. Desperately searching for groundwater, the roots slithered downward like giant tentacles, wrapping the heavy stone in a crushing, permanent embrace. Now, the trees are literally the only thing holding the crumbling ruins together. If you cut the roots, the entire temple violently collapses. Prohm is a chilling, terrifying reminder that nature always aggressively reclaims the dirt below. But if the dark jungle inevitably conquers the earth, what kind of impossible architectural madness exists suspended high above, desperately clinging to gravity-defying pillars of stone? Imagine stepping completely off the edge of the logical world. Massive, gravity-defying pillars of raw stone violently piercing through the clouds, balancing ancient, forbidden structures at the absolute edge of the abyss. From down below, it looks entirely like a glitch in the sky. A civilization built in the heavens, designed to be completely untouchable. This is Meteora, hidden deep in the mountainous heart of Greece, rising over 1,300 feet directly into the sky. These terrifying vertical monoliths are crowned by ancient monasteries built in the 14th century. They sit completely severed from the rest of humanity, clinging desperately to the absolute peak of the stone. Suspended out here in the atmosphere, the sheer scale of human desperation completely shatters your mind. Looking down into the endless, terrifying drop creates a sickening sense of vertigo. It is a completely isolated sanctuary, seemingly built by the hands of ghosts. designed to protect its inhabitants from the brutal, violent world below. How was this impossible monument ever constructed? Hundreds of years ago, desperate monks carried massive stone blocks up, using nothing but terrifyingly fragile rope ladders and massive nets. The geography itself is a complete geological anomaly. Over 60 million years ago, earthquakes and violent water erosion aggressively carved these massive sandstone columns, washing the surrounding landscape away into nothingness. A fragile, untouchable sanctuary suspended in the heavens. But peace is always an illusion. Because our next descent takes us violently away from the clouds, dragging us straight down into the toxic, burning belly of a neon blue hell. Total darkness falls, but the earth here does not sleep. Instead, it violently bleeds a glowing, electric neon fire. A highly toxic, suffocating underworld where the air instantly burns your lungs and the twisting flames look like they were ripped directly from a cyberpunk nightmare. This is the ultimate visual paradox. Welcome to the deadly crater of Kawah, Ijen, Indonesia. A highly volatile, active volcano holding the world's absolute largest acidic crater lake. But the true, terrifying danger only emerges at the dead of night. When the temperatures hit a scorching 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit, the entire mountain violently erupts in radioactive liquid blue flames. Watching this alien inferno bleed down the jagged rocks is a pure rush of visual dopamine. The neon glow completely engulfs the darkness, creating an atmosphere that feels incredibly hostile, yet impossible to look away from. It is a mesmerizing, deadly underworld, a place where the earth literally spits out radioactive venom under the cover of night. The terrifying secret behind this alien fire is pure, unforgiving chemistry. The volcano violently emits extremely high-pressure, toxic sulfuric gases from deep, hidden cracks inside the crater. When these superheated, deadly gases violently collide with the oxygen in the freezing night air, they instantly and aggressively ignite. The liquid sulfur then spills down the mountain, creating the surreal, mind-bending illusion of glowing blue lava. A toxic masterpiece of pure neon destruction. But enough of the suffocating darkness. It is time to rapidly resurface and step directly inside America's most hypnotic, glowing illusion of light and flowing stone. You are literally walking through frozen fire, massive liquid waves of burning orange and deep, suffocating purple, permanently frozen in time, twisting endlessly like a brutal mirage beneath the desert surface. This is not a digital painting. This is solid, unforgiving stone. This is Antelope Canyon, buried deep within the Navajo lands of Arizona. Some of these dangerously narrow sandstone walls soar up to a staggering 120 feet high, plunging the claustrophobic corridors into a surreal, constantly shifting darkness where the physical laws of light itself seem to violently bend and break. Wandering through these narrow, winding corridors completely distorts your perception of reality. as the severe midday sun perfectly aligns. Above, sharp, violent beams of light suddenly pierce through the pitch-black shadows, instantly setting the frozen stone on fire. It is a terrifyingly quiet trap of flowing rock and shifting light, completely isolated from the chaotic American world above. The impossible glass-like smoothness of these walls is actually the brutal, terrifying work of sudden flash floods. For millions of years, violent monsoon rains gathered in the upper desert basin, aggressively picking up abrasive sand and rushing violently through these narrow cracks. The roaring, pressurized water acted exactly like liquid sandpaper, aggressively carving the Navajo sandstone into these impossible, flowing, alien geometries. A mesmerizing, inescapable trap of ancient light and shadow. But this canyon is hidden, entirely below ground. What if we climb out of the dirt and violently ascend directly into the clouds to uncover the ultimate, untouchable lost city? High above the sacred valley, permanently wrapped in an eternal, suffocating blanket of fog, sits a literal ghost town in the sky. A sprawling, impossible citadel built directly on a terrifying razor's edge, seemingly dropped straight from the heavens by an ancient god. This is the absolute peak of human defiance against nature. This is Machu Picchu, Peru, constructed in the 15th century at a staggering, breathless altitude of nearly 8,000 feet. It stands today as the greatest surviving masterpiece of the forgotten Inca Empire, an entire sprawling empire built entirely without the use of mortar, without a single iron tool, and completely without the wheel. Standing at the absolute edge of this massive, jagged cliff, the sheer scale of human willpower leaves you completely speechless. As the heavy, suffocating morning fog finally breaks apart, a flawlessly engineered empire emerges from the mist. It is a silent, ghostly fortress fiercely guarding the mountain, stubbornly touching the very roof of the sky. The engineering behind this city is absolutely mind-bending. The Incas cut these massive granite blocks with such terrifying, flawless precision that not even a single credit card can fit between the gaps. Sitting dangerously on two major fault lines, the city was engineered to survive violent earthquakes. When the ground violently shakes, the perfectly cut stones simply dance in place and then fall right back into perfect alignment. A soaring, indestructible monument to human brilliance. But even solid stone can eventually be conquered. As we finally leave the freezing mountains behind, we step directly into a landscape so violently lifeless, it feels exactly like an apocalyptic painting. The world literally ends right here. A blinding canvas of scorched white clay, violently framed by towering dunes of blood-red sand. And standing dead in the center, a terrifying graveyard of pitch-black, skeletal trees that have not taken a single breath in nearly 1,000 years. It feels exactly like a glitch in the Matrix. This is Deadvlei, hidden deep within the unforgiving deserts of Namibia. It is nestled perfectly inside the absolute highest sand dunes on planet Earth. some towering over 1,300 feet tall. The merciless African sun bakes this dead ground at well over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It is one of the most extreme, violently desolate environments in existence. Standing inside this isolated pan totally shatters your grip on reality. The brutal contrast of the bleeding orange sand against the pure black wood plays vicious tricks on your mind. You will constantly question if you are staring at a physical landscape or a terrifyingly perfect apocalyptic painting, a completely scorched canvas, violently frozen in time. How did these trees literally turn to solid coal without ever catching fire? 900 years ago, the global climate shifted dramatically. The rushing river that once fed this marsh completely dried up, and massive, creeping sand dunes aggressively moved in, blocking any future water. The climate became so violently dry that these trees couldn't even naturally decompose. They were simply scorched black by the relentless sun, completely mummified forever. A stunning, sun-baked graveyard at the very edge of the earth. We have witnessed fire, ancient ice, and impossible stone. But absolutely nothing prepares you for our final destination. We are officially stepping off the dirt and walking straight into the infinite sky. The horizon completely shatters. The physical boundary between heaven and earth simply vanishes, leaving you hopelessly stranded inside an infinite glowing void. Out here, you no longer walk on the ground. You are literally walking on the clouds. This is Salar de Uyuni, buried high in the mountains of Bolivia. It is the absolute largest salt flat on Earth, stretching across a mind-numbing 4,000 square miles at an altitude of almost 12,000 feet. When the seasonal rains finally arrive, this dead expanse violently transforms into the world's largest, flawless natural mirror. Standing perfectly still in the center of this void completely breaks the human brain. With no visual reference, points, your depth perception entirely collapses. You are entirely swallowed by the cosmos. It is the absolute edge of reality, a terrifyingly perfect mirror reflecting the universe right back at itself. This impossible illusion is actually the ghost of a prehistoric world. Millions of years ago, a massive super lake slowly evaporated under the brutal Andean sun, leaving behind a suffocating crust of pure salt 30 feet thick. When nearby lakes overflow during the rain, a microscopic, perfectly leveled layer of water coats the flat crust. With absolutely no wind, it flawlessly reflects the sky above, erasing the horizon entirely. This is not a simulation. This is the ultimate mind-bending masterpiece of our planet. We blindly walk this earth entirely convinced that we know its absolute limits. But from the bleeding alien trees of Yemen to the terrifying neon fires of Indonesia, this planet holds dangerous secrets that completely shatter our pathetic understanding of reality. So, out of these 10 impossible, forbidden landscapes, which one violently shattered your perception of reality the most? Was it the boiling, toxic rainbow of Yellowstone, or the infinite, mind-bending mirror of Bolivia? Let me know your absolute favorite, right down below in the comments. If you want to keep aggressively exploring the terrifying unknown in cinematic 4K, hit that subscribe button right now. The world is massive, and we are just getting started. This is Beyond the Horizon. See you in the next one.